I've wanted to put together a collection of Space Marines, one from each of the 18 legions, for quite a while now, just to have on display. And with a new edition around the corner, it feels like the perfect time to finally start this. So I'm bringing you along for the ride. Now, I'm not going to pretend I'm a master level painter. I call myself solid tabletop, low-end tabletop hobbyist. These videos aren't going to be full of fancy techniques or pro-level painting, tips. I'm not even going to pretend they are. The real value here is in the color schemes themselves. Simple, accessible ways to get your legions on the table and looking great with low effort. Now, we're going to go through them in legion order. So we're going to start with the first legion, the Dark Angels of Caliban. So let's hit the table, shall we? Right, so to get started with our Dark Angel, we're going to give it a nice coat of black. Now, the reason for putting black on, even though we've used a black primer, I started before I started recording because I'm a silly Billy, is basically to give it a nice, even coat to start with, because sometimes you can be a little inconsistent with your primer, I find. It's just, sometimes you just can't get it quite angled right. And secondly, because it uses because the spray primer gives a slightly different finish and tone, as it were, to a bottle paint. If you make any mistakes and you've then got to go back and correct it, like say you get a big splotch of red on a bit of the black armor, you then would need to use black. And of course, if you if you haven't given a nice old coat of bottle stuff, you're going to end up with a slightly different finish. So this looks really wet on the key, but it's not that bad. I'll probably put this on a bit thicker than I should. I have thinned it down with a little bit of water, but I'm a terrible painter and don't copy my actual way of painting. This is just the color guide, I guess. So now we've got this guy all established with his nice black. I'm going to start by highlighting that black armor. It's just the way I like to do things with this particular scheme. And what I'm using is Games Workshop Sit Out Paint Skavenblight Dinge. And I think this is, it's not quite as stark as some other greys. And I think it gives a nice finish. I'm not the best painter, so if you want to see an expert paint job, go somewhere else, honestly. But yeah, as you can see, just Mark II armor as we're using here. I think they used Mark II armor simply because that's as the first legion, they would have been first to obviously do that. And obviously you want to get all these little lines, and you've got lots of them on Mark II armor, and get all these lines, these areas and edge highlighted. And if you want to make it look a little bit damaged, just sort of stabby highlights, if that makes any sense. So like let's grab this here, so sort of like a bit rougher, and it sort of makes it look as if it's taken a little bit of damage there. So, and then just, as I say, go around every one of these. As I said, I'm not an expert painter, so if you want to know how someone does perfect edge highlighting, there are many other painters that have it. I'm just giving a scheme, but I quite like this scheme. I've used it for Ravenwing in my 40k army. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and I'm going to get all this finished, and I'll come back and we'll go on to the next part of the scheme, shall we? So now we've got the edge highlighting done and it's dried, what we're going to do is going to take some silver. I'm going to do all the trim and silver bits for that. So one of the cool things about these about Mark II and Mark III armor especially, is got lots of nice cool little bits of detail. You can get that you can get silver on to really give it a nice standout color, which I really like. So make sure you get your bolters workings. I'm using Leadbelcher for this. Obviously there are other paints you can use. I think gunmetal from Army Painter, is it called? I'm just going to have a look now because I do have some. I'm just not using it for this. Yeah, gunmetal from Army Painter, and Coat Silver from Two Fin Coats. But yeah, I just find yeah, so you want to do your shoulder pads. I like to do on these particular guys, black armored, I like to do the sort of like, what do you call it, the where the sort of undersuit thing, that sort of, I can't remember what it's called, but in the joins, silver as well, and that just sort of helps stand it out, instead of doing black like you would on most marines. I'm just going to paint the entire bolter. It's just easier for me to do it that way. I don't know why, it just is. Probably because I'm a weirdo. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to finish this, and we'll come back and we'll move on to the next stage, which will be giving these a wash. Okay, this next step, really super simple. We're just going to take Nuln Oil or any kind of wash like Oblivion Black from Two Fin Coats, or strong tone. Is it strong? No, it's dark tone from Army Painter, and we're just going to paint over the silver. Now, what you also need to do is you need to be careful not to get this wash on the black. Now, you might not think that's a big deal. I've just got a bit there. I'll have to fix that. But the wash will leave the black with a slightly... Oh, there's a bit of ribbing there. I should paint that silver, shouldn't I? It will leave it with a slightly different finish. And if you are fastidious about how your models look, it will bother you. Believe you me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this, and then I'm going to come back. I'll correct that little bit of black as well, or any other bits I hit, and then I'll come back and we'll do the next bit, which will be to get a couple of other colours on there. Okay, next stop for our Dark Angel here, we're going to do a couple of colours on his guns. Now, the first of those is going to be Mephiston Red, and I use this for his gun case. Now, you can do this gun case in any colour you want, but I like doing red when it comes to the good old Dark Angels. I think it just looks good on them. I use it in their 40k version, but and I've seen a lot of people use black because it's more gritty, more realistic, but I think that, to be fair, these guys need a little something to... Oh, I put it on there. I wanted to stay silver, so I'm gonna have to go back and correct that, because I'm a dafty. I do this kind of mistake all the time, because, yeah, as I said, I'm a dafty. So let's get this red on there, and the next colour I'll just change before I finish. I haven't quite finished yet, but I'm going to do the next colour now. Now I'm going to do the bullets. Now I'm going to use Runelord Brass, which is a great, nice brass colour. It works lovely on bullets, but to be fair, you could use any kind of colour you want. You could use Retributor Armour, you could use, I don't know, Skullcrusher Brass, you could use Balthazar Gold, any of those colours, or any of the other types, or quite copper, I don't know, maybe if you want to do something a bit different. And the reason I put that on there now is because we're going to be shading these both with the same colour. So I'll go away, finish the red, let that dry, correct my mistake, and then I'll be back in a minute. We're getting close to the end here. What we're going to do next is we're going to take Reikland Fleshshade. That's right, Reikland Fleshshade, and we're gonna wash the bolter casing and the shells. It was the now former manager at the Durham store who put me onto this way of doing bolter casings for the Dark Angels. He's now the manager at Derby as of I think a week or so ago. Really nice guy. If you live down Derby, go see their store. Chris is his name. He is rather cool. And we're just going to let that dry before we come back and highlight it. Oh, we do as I said, we do the shells in there as well. You could do the Magrak Surf Shade if you wanted to. I just wanted to have a little bit of... I just wanted to, make it nice and shiny. Now, while that's still drying, we're actually going to take we're actually going to highlight our silver. And what we're going to use for this is Stormhost Silver. Obviously, there are various other shiny silvers you can use out there, but Stormhost is quite nice. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's really good. There are other ones out there. Runepang Steel, I think is what used to be Mithril Silver. I still think of it as Mithril Silver, Struggle to adapt to change sometimes, I do. So we're just going to sort of go around all your edges of your Do your metallics. Not perfect at doing this, but really you need to sort of, you know, just get that done, and that sort of really helps with this highlight here. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to pop a bit on this eye lens here. He's got a nice, this particular helmet has a bit of an eye lens thing there. And I'm going to use a contrast paint on there when we come back and do the eye lenses and things. And that's going to sort of create a nice little shiny, it's going to be a sort of different finish to whatever his eye lens is going to be. I don't know whether I'll do it the same colour or maybe I'll do it something different. Why not? Why absolutely not? We're going to get this nice and finished. So we'll finish the highlighting, and we'll come back and we'll highlight up the a few other things, and we'll get some things finished off. Back with our Dark Angel here. What I have done is I have used the silver. I've also popped a little bit of onto these rivets here. Like I said, that's just to just to sort of break it up a bit more, give it a bit more something interesting to look at. So what we're going to do now is we're going to highlight your weapon casing, and what I'm going to use for that is the Citadel paint Wild Rider Red. So just pop a bit on the wet palette with a little bit of water to thin it down. Really is important that you get your paints flowing nicely, and I'm just going to highlight. Get that back on camera. Highlight the gun casing. And I just like the way that this looks. Now while I'm here, give me a moment. We're going to prep for the eyes. So we're going to, because this just dropped something on the floor. This won't take more than a moment. And it really is really lovely. I like the way this looks when it's done. You know, and whether you've got a different way you want to do it or not, that's cool. But as I said, I think that, I just think you need something to stand out with these guys being all black. So while we're here, we're going to prep for the eyes. So we're going to take some white. In this case, we're going to use some white scarf from Citadel, or you can use a matte white from, say, army painter. But again, we're going to pop that on the wet palette. We're going to smooth that down because we really need this to flow nicely. A bit more there because I've watered it down a bit too much. And what we're going to do is we're just going to drop this into the eye lens area of your helmet. And then we're going to be putting a glaze on there. Now what I'll do is, in the meantime, I'm going to pop a colour onto this eye lens thing here on his helmet. And I'm going to use a contrast paint for this. Oop, not the camera there, because contrasts are great for this kind of thing. I'm going to choose a different colour, just to add a little bit more interest to him. I'm going to use a green. We are using Karandras Green, which is one of my favourite greens in the contrast range, just to give it a little bit of a, again, something different, more interesting. Now, that white looks to have dried reasonably quickly, and that'll be because it is so flipping hot. So I'm going to use some Blood Angels Red Contrast. Now this stuff is I'm almost out of this stuff. It was one of the very first contrast paints I bought, and oh, just careful, I've got a bit on the, got a bit too much on the brush here. But we already put the, yeah, it's all on my fingers. We already put it on the, we already put the backpack on there. And we put a bit of Blood Angels Red in there. And there you go. So all I'm going to do is go away and base him. And then that is him done. And that's your Dark Angel. So here is how he turns out. I painted the right shoulder pad green in the end to mark him as one of Caliban's son, as mentioned in stories like Savage Weapons. For the base, I went with a red planet look. That's Martian ironwork shaded with Reikland Fleshshade, then dry brush with Jokaro orange and Kindle Flame. It's not a Golden Demon entry, it's nowhere near, and I'm sure many of you can do better. My highlights are a bit rough, but I think it's a decent no-fuss scheme for painting the Sons of the Lions. Now, if you found this helpful, or if you've got your own take on painting Dark Angels, I'd love to hear. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear how others are tackling the First Legion. And if you're interested in seeing the rest of the Legions as this project goes on, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.